of terror in a way, you can say. And it becomes clear that despite everything, war is going to happen. We have a very beautiful scene. And that scene gives us not only how are we supposed to fight, like what are we supposed to do, but it also foretells the future. The scene is a scene in which it's just the eve of the war, you could say. And Bhagwan Krishna is taking rest, Vishramme. And Arjun and Duryodhan both arrive to him to seek his help in this war. Both of them know they need him. And they take their places at his head and at his feet. Bhagwan Krishna opens his eyes, sees them here, and says, "What can I do for you?" And of course they both say, "Chalo, yud hone wale, we need you." And he says, "Okay, here's what I will offer you. One of you can have my entire army." And of course Bhagwan Krishna was the king, the head of the Yadav clan, a huge, huge army. Can have my entire army. And the other one can have me. But I won't fight. I won't bring any of my army and I won't fight. And what do they choose? Right? Duryodhan says, "Well, for God's sakes, this isn't a satsang, this is war. I need the army. I want the army." And Arjun says, "Perfect, I want you. Even you won't fight, I want you." And that's what helps us realize when we choose God, the presence of the divine, that future is already told. That victory is already certain. So we then enter the war. And this is where we get the teaching so clearly. Fight the war. Fight the war, you must. So when today we've got terrorism, we've got aggression, we must fight this war. This is not the time to say, "I'm just going to sit this one out." Like Arjun says, "Forget it, I'm just going to go meditate in the cave." And Bhagwan Krishna says, "No, not so fast." In the same way today, not the time to sit this one out. We must stand up and fight this war against injustice, this war against violence, the war against discrimination, the war against harm, the war against terrorism. Because there's a war against the war that is happening. And we must fight that. But how must we fight it? Remembering God. Meaning, we don't get lost in the war. Meaning we are not catalyzed by, driven by anger, greed, ignorance. We don't forget that we are just channels of the divine. This is why spiritually we must be grounded and anchored first, connected first. Our peace, our meditation is not instead of engagement. It's the foundation for engagement. We must meditate. We must pray. We must be spiritually grounded and anchored. Because otherwise we act in ignorance. Then we act in ego. Then we act out of our anger. And then we're useless. So we must be anchored and grounded in that truth. And then we're able to be these beautiful channels for that flow of the divine. Recognizing we're not the doer, we're just an instrument in the hands of the doer. But we must stand up fearlessly. The Gita is rooted in this teaching of abhayam, be fearless. Because of course Arjun's scared, what's going to happen? I could die. And I love this part because of course Krishna's God, right? I mean, he knows Arjun's not going to die. It's not like he's sitting on eggshells, biting his fingernails, kya hoga? He's God. He knows what's going to happen. The whole thing's his leela. So when Arjun says, I could die, it would be so easy for Krishna to say, don't worry, you won't, I promise. Trust me, I'm running the show. But he doesn't say that. He says, yeah, you might. Yeah, you might. But to die in the fulfillment of your dharma is 1,000,000 times better than to live forever but not fulfill your dharma. And right now, we're at a time in which it is each of our dharma to stand up and to be a part of the solution. We're not all going to be the same part. Just like in the war of Kurukshetra, everyone played a different role. Some on the front line, some behind the scenes. Everyone had a different role. And in the same way, we'll all play different roles. But we all need to be part of this solution. For the same reason that Arjun needed to fight. And this is what Bhagavan Krishna helped him understand. If you don't fight, adharma, unrighteousness, will reign supreme. Then the Kaurav family, Duryodhana and his brothers, they will continue to rule this kingdom in adharma, bringing suffering to the kingdom, to the people, to the land. Therefore, it is your dharma, your duty, as a man of dharma, to stand up and to fight this battle. And it's so easy for us, people of peace, to be like, well, I'll just sit here and meditate and let them all sort of fight this out and then, wake me when it's over. It's really easy to have that instinct right now. There's so much going on that people of peace, people of spirituality, people of dharma, it's so easy for us to feel like, you know what? I'm just going to be over here meditating and doing my yoga. And just let me know when it's safe to come out. But that's not the answer right now. We must be engaged as people of dharma. Because otherwise the planet is ruled by adharma, by unrighteousness. And remember that Bhagavan Krishna tells us that whenever adharma, lack of righteousness, is winning out over righteousness, when darkness is winning out over light, he said, I incarnate. I incarnate in form to restore the light to the darkness. He also said that I live in the heart of all my devotees. Right? We are told in the Bhagavad Gita and in so many of the other scriptures as well that each of us is that embodiment of the divine. And when you put those two teachings together, what it means is we are the ones We are the manifestations right now, the embodiments right now of the divine on earth in form to restore righteousness, to restore Dharma, to restore the light. So what does God want us to do? God wants us to stand up and fight fearlessly, but with anchoring and grounding, remembering God. So we are not fighting from our ego. We're not fighting from a place of ignorance, of anger, of illusion, but rather we are fighting as instruments of that flow of the divine that restores light to the darkness. So that's what each of us needs to do in our own way. And yeah, we're each going to serve in a lot of different ways. Some will be the warriors. Some will be the teachers. Some will be the envelope stuffers to raise the money for the war. Some will do all kinds of things. But we all need to be part of it. Are there any questions that anyone here has? Yes.
Thank you. Pranam. Since last few weeks, I am constantly troubled with anxiety, a lot of anxiety day in and out, which I can connect to a regret that is coming from the past and also a future worry. And it's so powerful almost 80-90% of the time that I become dysfunctional and I'm unable to do anything else. Please guide me, what do I do about it?
So, regret. Regret is a very powerful emotion. It reminds us over and over again that we've made a mistake, that we went astray. Now, regret is different from guilt. Guilt says who you are is a horrible person. You are bad. You are wrong. You are stupid. You should be punished. Regret says what you did was wrong. And those are very different. Guilt is never useful because guilt is a lie. Guilt is telling us something that is not true. Who you are is not wrong. Who you are is not bad. What you may have done may have been a mistake. But make sure that what you've got is regret, not guilt. Guilt is something that we should be free of all the time, because all guilt does is keep us stuck. Guilt actually holds us down because it keeps saying, "Wo to tumesi ho." You are a wrong person, a bad person. You will always be like this. So guilt keeps us always down. Regret can actually be a positive force for change. Regret says, yeah, I made a mistake. I did something that was wrong. I did it because in that moment I was in the throes of anger, lust, greed, ignorance, stress. Busyness, right? We make mistakes for so many different reasons. Sometimes just because we're trying to do too many things at once. We're not paying attention. Sometimes because we're really mired in anger or jealousy or greed or lust. Sometimes just because we're stressed out and we're not thinking clearly. But when you look at it, when you look at what you did, feeling regret is okay if it was something wrong. But remember that that regret is for an action, not for who you are. You are much bigger than that action. That action is one thing out of your entire life. And your life is full of so much beauty, so much love, so much compassion, so much caring, so much generosity, so many right actions. And use that regret instead of letting it make you feel anxious and horrible. Use it as a way to make sure that you stay mindful, aware, conscious all the time. Because when we're conscious and mindful and aware, we tend not to make mistakes that we later regret. And when it causes stress for you, ask yourself, is there something you can do? Because sometimes there's something we can do. Sometimes we can fix the situation. Sometimes we can go back and actually fix it. Sometimes we can't fix it, but we can make amends to the person or people we hurt. That we can't undo what we did, but we can at least make amends and ask for forgiveness, which brings about healing. If you can do either of those things, do them. If there's any way for you to right that wrong, do it. And if not, remember that we're all energetic beings. And even if you can't make amends to them physically, for whatever reason, sometimes people have died, sometimes they've gone away, we can't reach them, sometimes we don't even know who they are. We did it to someone, we have no idea even their name or how to even ever find them again. Sometimes because they don't want to speak to us. There's a lot of reasons why we won't always be able to make amends physically. Sometimes just because our ego doesn't let us. If that's it, overcome the ego and do it. But if there's any other reason, speak to their spirit. In your room, on the banks of Ganga, just speak to them. Tell them how sorry you are. Tell them how if you could rewind history, you would. But also look back and ask yourself, what was it that I was going through at that time? What ignorance? What greed? What jealousy? What busyness? What blinders did I have on that made me not see the situation so that I did this act that I now feel so badly about? And commit yourself to the extent possible to never be in that situation again, that you are in the throes of such ego or such anger or such greed or such lust or such ignorance that you ever act like that again. And then forgive yourself and let it go. Offer it to Mother Ganga. Offer it to God. It was just one act. You are much more than that. There's no need to keep yourself in jail forever. Let it go. But let it go with that sankalp that now you will live in consciousness, in awareness, such that nothing like that ever happens through you again. But there's nothing you can do that will disqualify you from grace, from God's love. So forgive yourself. Clearly you didn't intend it. You didn't wake up that morning and say, I know what I'm going to do. I'm going to do this horrible thing that's going to hurt others and I'm going to regret it for the rest of my life. Clearly you didn't plan it like that. So something happened. Let it go. But let it go with a lesson so that you grow from it. Beautiful. Yes.
Jai Shri Krishna.
Jai Shri Krishna.
I just wanted to ask you that when you want to try to do something good, why do you get obstacles in your life?
Obstacles are part of the package deal of life. If you go back to our scriptures, go back to the actual stories of Bhagwan Ram, of Bhagwan Krishna. Full of obstacles. Bhagwan Krishna is born in jail. How many times before he was 6, 7 years old did they try to kill him? His own family member. His own family member, his own uncle tried to kill him. So many times. What could be bigger obstacles than that? Most of us face obstacles, but not a constant threat to our life by a family member. Look at Bhagwan Ram. This embodiment of virtue. Embodiment of righteousness, of dharma, of integrity. The perfect son, husband, brother. What does he get? Banishment. 14 years to the forest. Why? Not through any fault of his own. Through a whole intricate karmic drama, beginning with Shravan Kumar and his parents, moving through Kaikai, moving through all of the different players. But banishment to the forest. And then finally he's back. Finally, after 14 years he's back. What does he have to do? Leave his wife and kids? Because some random ignorant villager has a doubt? Has a dirty mind? Why are we given these stories? I mean, you think, if I had a magic wand, I would certainly wipe out all the obstacles in my life. I mean, wouldn't you all, if you had a magic wand or a genie in a bottle? Wouldn't you just immediately wipe out all your obstacles? You know, maybe we would be gracious enough to first wipe out the obstacles of the planet. So, okay, world hunger is gone. You know, we'll take care of world hunger first. Take care of climate change, take care of terrorism. But eventually we're going to come to my obstacle. Get rid of that. My in-laws over here, my employees over there, we'll just kind of, right? Magic wand them all away. So if God is incarnating on earth, why wouldn't God give himself an obstacle-free existence? He's got an unlimited number of wishes from the genie in the bottle. The most powerful magic wand. Why wouldn't God create an obstacle-free life? To teach us, to show us. That's all it's about. It's not that Bhagwan Krishna was bound by some karma. This had to happen to him. He chose it to show us, to teach us that life isn't about becoming free of obstacles. Life is about how we deal with obstacles. This is what I was sharing on the banks of Ganga the other night, that Ganga is such an inspiration, because throughout her 2,500 kilometers, there's so many times where that riverbed becomes very windy. So many times that, rapids are there. People river raft because it's an adventure trip. The rapids are so fast and furious. But she keeps flowing, the same. Whether it's calm and still, whether it's full of rapids, whether it's straight, whether it's windy. She keeps flowing. And it reminds us how to flow in our own lives. And we get obstacles, not randomly, we get obstacles to teach us something. Either a particular specific lesson, or just simply because that's the situation through which working through it takes us one step closer to the divine. Pujya Swamiji always says, instead of asking God, why me? We should say to God, try me. Like, I know you're here with me. Okay, try me. So don't think of obstacles as obstacles. Think of them as part of the package deal of your particular karmic incarnation. The goal of which being awakening and divine connection. Beautiful. Yeah. Does anyone else have a question? Yeah, we'll take this last.
Jai Shri Krishna. How do we create a bond of love with God? That intense love.
Beautiful. She asked, how do we create an intense bond of love with God? Beautiful. There's no equation for love, unfortunately. But recognize that love is the core of who you are. When you are at your purest, and by purest I mean not stuck with things that are pulling your attention, not stuck with desires, with wants, with likes, with dislikes, with expectations, with attachments, but when you are just in your purest self, who you are is love. Our goal, our path, is to remove the obstacles to love. We don't have to create love. We have to just remove the obstacles to it. Remember also that at the core, we are one with God. And so that love is innate. It's inherent in who we are. But we've forgotten. We've gotten distracted into thinking, oh, I need those shoes. I need that job. I need to lose 10 pounds. I need his wife. I need that house. We've gotten distracted. I need this one's respect. I need more money. I need more followers on Facebook. I need you to be nice to me. We've gotten so distracted. There's a beautiful story that Pujya Swamiji told me right in the very beginning when I was first here. It's a story of a king. And the king had many wives, as they used to. And the king had gone off on a journey to neighboring lands, as they used to do, to kind of conquer the nearby lands. And as they would conquer the nearby lands, they would bring back these treasures from the lands. Spices and fabrics and silks and gems and whatnot. So this king goes off to do his conquering thing. And before he leaves to come back, he sends a message to all of his wives. Let me know what you'd like me to bring for you. So all of his wives send back these lists. Bring me saris, bring me silks, bring me gems, bring me this, bring me that. And one of his wives sends back a piece of paper with just the number 1 written on it. Now the king was a very good man, but not a brilliant man. But in those days, kings usually had very wise ministers. And the ministers frequently were holy men, deep men, wise men who would guide the king. And this king had a very wise minister who, when he showed him the letter, the king says, this one? What does she mean? Everybody else was smart. They sent me a list. This one, just 1? That doesn't mean anything. And the minister says, Your Majesty, this queen is saying, you are her number 1. You are all she wants, just her number 1. Everybody else wants a list of so many things. She only wants you. The king says, oh. So of course, he gets all the items for the other queens. He sends them. But he goes personally to this queen. And as Pujya Swamiji told me in the beginning, I can still hear him saying this now more than 25 years ago. He said, and of course, wherever the king goes, everything goes with him. Right? All the chariots, all the everything goes with him. But most of us are like those wives who get distracted. We want the things. We want things from God, from our prayers, from our meditation. I should get this. If I do enough japa, then I will have this power, or I will be able to do this. Or if I do enough puja, then God will give me that. But we should be like this queen, remembering that all we want is God. And if all we want is God, then God will be with us. So that love blossoms in a single pointed awareness and devotion that's undistractable. We've seen the saris, we've seen the diamonds, we've seen the gems, we've seen the fabric, we've seen the spices, we've seen the cars and homes, and we know. Even after having all of that, I still feel empty inside. And only then we realize, wasn't in those things. We finally call out to God. Sadly, it becomes too frequently the last resort. Like, first I'm going to try to find happiness in this. First I'll get rich, then I'll get famous, then I'll have this, then I'll have that. The benefit of satsang, the benefit of spirituality, the benefit of reading inspiring texts, the benefit of a guru is hopefully before we get to the point of the last resort, we get turned in the direction of God. Because when what we want is God, then God is there, and that love will blossom. It'll blossom. Allow the attention, allow the intention, allow the yearning to just be for that presence, to be for that love. And as you free yourself from the desires for everything else, and God's presence is with you more and more, that intense love will blossom more and more and more. Beautiful. Aapka kal le lenge. Kal le lete. Actually, sorry, quick important announcement. We will not have satsang tomorrow. I have to go to Delhi for just overnight. We will be back day after tomorrow. Tomorrow is Sunday, is that correct? So no satsang on Sunday, but we will be back for satsang on Monday. तो आपका क्वेश्चन हम मंडे ले लेंगे. Okay, ठीक है, no problem. Yes.
Being enacted by God continuously.
Simple question. He said, why is this cosmic drama being enacted by God? But it's the simple question. You know, we speak about the Leela, this cosmic drama. It's impossible to know why exactly. God hasn't told us, here is exactly why I have done this. I mean, we're given a lot of different hints. The explanation that makes the most sense to me and feels the most correct is when we are one, just one, which is what we are with God, right? We're one with God. There is no difference. There is no separation. But in that oneness, we don't always feel the oneness because we're just one. A lot of times it's when two become one that we feel it more. Think about in your relationships, right? How many times do we create a fight, create some sort of conflict in our relationship, unconsciously, just because we know that making up is going to feel really good? Right? Things start to get a little bit boring in our relationship. They're good, but they're just a little bit maybe boring. No excitement, no passion right now. So what do? We create a little something so that there can be a little conflict, so then we can make up. Now, after we make up, in one sense, we're just back exactly where we were before we created the conflict. But it feels a lot better. Right? Suddenly that passion is there again, that love is there again, that excitement is there again. Because one, us as one, became two temporarily. In that conflict, we forgot our oneness. We became two, we had a little conflict thing. Now we are two becoming one again, and it feels very beautiful. That two becoming one feels very, very beautiful. And so the explanation that I've heard that makes the most sense to me is that God wanted to have that experience of two becoming one. Wanted to have that experience of us coming back to God. And so needed to create this temporary illusion of separation so that we would struggle. And then we would find our way back. And then two would again become one. So that God could have that experience of the two becoming one. Beautiful. Have a a beautiful rest of your evening, a beautiful tomorrow, and we'll see you all on Monday. We will take your question on Monday, sweetness.
I don't have question, but I
Oh.
want to tell you a story.
Okay. I will be very happy to hear your story in just a few minutes. Very happy. Thank you. So, I'm sorry?
It's of 30 seconds.
30-second story. Okay, do you want to tell it to everybody?
I can tell you.
Tell just to me. Okay, so give me 3-4 minutes and then I will happily hear your 30-second story. So much love to you all and look forward to being together.